Awesome.
Them.
I know.
Just them.
Please, please.
Faggot, faggot, faggot.
Trust me, when they kiss in a future episode, Lumity After the Storm is gonna have a very fun thumbnail. But I want y'all to listen to this. And if the Owl House, which I must preface isn't even over yet, can give me these impressions, not just with their main character relationship, but everything story-wise and character-wise they presented so far, then y'all better get the pen and pad out, because the Owl House is going to be something we write down in the history books. I was fucking right, and I thought Dana Terrace was on a mission in season 2A, but oh my god, her crew hit it out of the park with this one. If you click on this video, I don't think I need to tell you that season 2B of the Owl House is fucking brilliant, and if you disagree with me, you're wrong. Or you haven't watched it yet. I've been so excited to write the script for this video, so much so that I wanted to write it before the season finale aired. I'm glad I didn't, because I have a lot to say about it, and I want this video to be as complete as possible. Just like how season 2A was a big step up from season 1, season 2B is a big step up from season 2A. I described every episode of 2A as gold, and if that's gold, then 2B is fucking diamond, because this shit is priceless. It features stronger characters and plot, cleaner animation, tighter story structure, and last but not least, fan service. Yeah, you saw the thumbnail. I'm not going to talk about Lumity much in this video because my problem with its fandom that I expressed in these videos has mostly subsided. I mean, the problem is still here, it's just not very substantiated anymore. So, good job fandom, you actually cared about more than one thing this time.
I thought Luce was just some lost kid, but because of me, she's wrapped up in this thing with Bellows, and it's just not fair.
The characters and emotion were always the strongest allure of the Owl House, but due to the plot getting more complex, the emotion of the characters shifted more into the forefront. Seriously, if you thought the ending of Yesterday's Live was the pinnacle of characterization, nearly every episode in 2B has a beautiful moment of expression, and nearly every character gets their time to shine. Luce, Ida, King, Amity, Gus, Willow, Hunter, all of these moments are at the very least great, but I want to focus on 3 that stuck out to me. The first scene is relatively simple, but nonetheless beautiful. The Willow and Gus breathing scene. I don't know, I just find this scene really sweet. Willow and Gus's relationship is seen the strongest second to Luce and Ida, and I don't know, every time I watch this scene, I get the widest, most dumbass smile on my face. This is just a really strong platonic friendship that I really hope stays platonic, because in terms of recent strong platonic unisex friendships, or spuffs, we haven't gotten shit. The second scene is Ida talking to Lilith about Luce's involvement in everything. This moment brings up something that isn't noticed unless it's pointed out. A majority of the main characters are children, that is, people below the age of 18. You see all these underage characters doing these impressive feats for the greater good, overshadowing the fact that these are kids that have to mature very quickly because some tyrant wants to murder them and their families. This scene is somewhat similar to Camilla's scene at the end of Yesterday's Lie, except this time Ida actually knows about the danger that Luce is in. This shows Ida's motherly instincts taking over, wanting to do anything she can to protect her adoptive family. The third scene is so far my favorite scene in the entire show, the Grom tree scene. Before I get into any specifics, I must say that the animation is absolutely stunning. I've always been a sucker for cherry blossoms falling down on a frame. Honestly, I don't think I've ever seen this technique done terribly, and it's a perfect juxtaposition for the somber tone of the scene. Also, Luce and Amity are talking under the Grom tree. That's just great symbolization. Grom was a key moment in their relationship. The Grom episode turned Lumity into something that could happen into something that's going to happen, and the Grom tree is the perfect representation of that shift. As for the content of the scene, Amity wanted to know why Luce was acting so off the cuff that day, thinking her erratic nature had something to do with the human realm. Luce would confirm her suspicions, telling Amity the reason she was acting so strange that day was because it was the anniversary of her dad's death. On the anniversary, Luce and her mother would pick flowers in commemoration of his death, visit his grave, and spend the day together. However, this time, due to Luce being in the demon realm, she was unable to do that. Luce says that her actions were a combination of bottling up her emotions, wanting to find a distraction from the day, and possibly being jealous over the relationship that Amity has with her father. And I legitimately thought that season 2A was as serious as the show could get. Words cannot describe how much care was put into this scene. The dialogue, the cinematography, that horrified look that Amity gives Luce when she starts to explain herself. You know, if you told me that the show, whose first episode had this line,
I practice the ancient art of fan fiction,
also had one of the most beautiful scenes in any cartoon I've ever seen, I would have laughed at you like you're a luncher shipper. Like I said, these are 3 of my favorite moments, but honestly, this section could go on forever. I could talk about Willow and Amity becoming friends again, Ida and Rain, period, Hunter coming to a daunting revelation. 2B just shows that the Owl House will remain a masterclass in characterization.
I'm not angry though. Say, you wanna play tag? I'm it.
In terms of the story, Season 2B is just as strong as 2A, arguably stronger as it gives closure to the major plot points of the story as we hit the finish of the series. And speaking of finish, the Season 2 finale is amazing. It is the best culmination of everything the show has been building up to. And the finale just can't stop making me think about how the 3rd season will totally have 20 episodes, and will totally have enough time to conclude the story in an efficient manner. Right, Disney? In my last Owl House video, I remarked on how, at the time, it was way too early to gauge how the shortened 3rd season would go. And now that we're at the end of the 2nd season, I'm about to ruin the fun because I don't have high expectations for the 3rd season. Let me explain. Rewind to the season 1 finale. Ida has been captured by Bellows and plans to be petrified, and Luce goes on a campaign to save her. Now, that's not the main focus. In this episode, the first battle between Luce and Bellows occurs, and let's just be generous and say that the battle was lopsided. While Luce wasn't injured, the fight was child's play for Bellows from the start, with the only damage to Luce getting in being an eye shard cracking his mask. Bellows issues Luce an ultimatum: give up the portal to the human realm or Ida's petrified. Luce hands over the portal to Bellows and is sent to save Ida, but not before severely damaging the portal with fire glyphs. Despite this, Bellows will begin repairing the portal. What needs to be noted here is that by the end of the 1st season, Bellows has a strong advantage over Luce. He is more powerful than Luce, Ida can't use magic anymore, and he now has a key component for the Day of Unity. Alright, now fast forward to the Season 2 finale. The Day of Unity is finally here. The rebellion against Bellows has a plan to sabotage the draining spell, cloaking Ida as Rain and using her curse to stop the spell. However, as the plan is about to be set in motion, it is revealed that Bellows knew about the sabotage and had created countermeasures to prevent it, prompting Luce to confront Bellows in order to save Ida and stop the draining spell. In this fight, despite Luce drastically improving in her magic use, she is still powerless against Bellows. The only difference between this fight and the Season 1 fight at first is Bellows has dropped the veneer of diplomacy and is all too content with killing Luce along with the rest of the witches. Luce gets out of certain death with some strategic bargaining and ends up sabotaging Bellows. Her friends arrive on the scene in her aid. Luce, Gus, Willow, Amity, and Hunter continue fighting Bellows, now in his monstrous form, but do not succeed in defeating him. Before Bellows can kill them, what I can only assume is the love child between Zeno and Ziggy Stardust stops the attack and launches Bellows into a wall, turning him into a fucking puddle. King, who freed this guy by the way, convinces them to stop the draining spell, which he does by swiping the moon away from the sun, stopping the eclipse and the spell. Now, why did I explain all this? For context, it took Luce and her friends 2 seasons to attempt to stop Bellows and the Day of Unity, and it took the Collector under a minute, stopping both successfully. And just to add a cherry on top of this shit Sunday, Bellows got the draining spell from the Collector. Now I'm about to become Dora the Explorer, and you're about to spot the problem here. Luce fails to defeat Bellows. The Collector easily defeats Bellows. Luce now has to defeat the Collector. Have you spotted the problem yet? Yeah, ain't no way that shit's happening. At least not conventionally. You know what that means, right? It means that Steven Universe will never fucking die. Now why am I bringing up pigeon shit in a video about the Owl House? It's because both shows have similar predicaments, where the main character has to seemingly defeat an all-powerful enemy, or an enemy that's leagues above them in power. The difference is Steven, via his mom, was actually one of the all-powerful beings, and an ally of the enemies, and I doubt Luce can pull the Blades of Chaos out of her ass. However, the Owl House has a trump card: King, a Titan, the race that supposedly imprisoned the Collector in the first place. The problem is that King is a Oompa Loompa, a child whose only power is the ability to shoot shockwaves out of his mouth. This is where the problem of Season 3 being shortened rears its ugly head. How will Luce defeat the Collector? How will Luce even get back to the Demon Realm? If you gave me 10 hours of content rather than 2 or 3, I'd be able to guess an answer that isn't just me pulling mucus out of my nose. Those aren't even all the questions I have, but I'm done with this. Fuck Disney.
Hey, Mom. I'm back.
Before I start this section, I will say that season 1 of The Owl House is very important. Not just because it's the first season, but because it sets up the building blocks for season 2 being great. It also has a good chunk of problems that the crew avoided in season 2. Season 1 was good, but not nearly as airtight as 2. Everyone has already talked about the problems with the story and the pacing, but my gripe is with the characters. Like I said, the characters have always been the crown jewel of The Owl House, but it did start out kind of rocky. Willow and Gus just straight up get shafted. I'm not gonna lie. King was a person. Hootie was annoying. Amity was uninteresting. Lilith was a bitch. And Luce and Ida were pretty much carrying the show. However, I don't think anyone truly expected how amazing season 2 would be. The writers took the mistakes they made in season 1 to heart and made something incredible. And as for season 3, with all the cards stacked against it, and despite season 2 being great, I want everyone to have low expectations. That's something you should follow in life, but for Owl House fans, especially here. I don't really have a basis for a serialized cartoon getting its final season whittled down to 3-hour-long specials, so I can't really say a situation like this has always been bad, but knowing what I know about cartoons and having common sense, I don't see this going well. But this is The Owl House, and The Owl House is at its best when it's challenging expectations.